Hundreds of people lined the French Quarter hoping to get a glimpse of President Macron. He walked the streets and greeted people who were there to see him. He also toured parts of the city and met with Governor John Bell Edwards and Mayor Cantrell, among other leaders. He then ensured his dedication to continue the cultural partnership between the city, the state, and the country of France. Joining us today with more on that and the importance of this trip is Dr. Tomás Martin, who's the coordinator of programs in French studies at Loyola University. Thanks for joining us, Thomas. First of all, everybody I talked to, they were so excited that Macron was here. I had some friends who were over at DBA where he wound up that night, and they were sending me videos of, you know, him on stage, and he was kind of getting down with it.
Yeah, I was unfortunately not invited to that event, but he seemed to have a great time here, and definitely, I think, made some serious headway between France and New Orleans, and working together, especially given our cultural heritage.
And why is it so important that Macron stopped here? I mean, it was a big deal. He came to the White House for President Biden's first state visit, state dinner. But his trip here was special.
It was special. As it's been reported many times, the last visit was in the 1970s. This has been a while. But I think the most important thing between then and now is the tone that was really struck. I was able to be at the reception for the president where he spoke in French about French education, French language, support for teacher education. And the tone that was so different was that this time France, while they want to help propagate the French language and spread it around the world and get people to be better French teachers and learners, this time France didn't want to see itself as a sort of colonizer with the language. Everything was on equal footing, and I felt that they really valorized Louisiana French compared to just everything always being Parisian French. It was really special. And
there are a couple of schools here in town where, and some of them funded by the government of France, and what's the word I'm searching for? Authorized by the French.
Absolutely. The school in particular that I think you're thinking of is the Lycée Français.
Right.
And that school follows the curriculum.
Well, Audubon has one that's the same way.
Audubon does as well. I don't want to be unfair. Audubon actually has an excellent program, and a number of schools do. The École Bilingue as well does a great job of bilingual education here in New Orleans. I think what's surprising is the number of families that really want that education, whereas in the rest of the United States, France is unfortunately starting to diminish a little bit in popularity in education, but here it is thriving.
And the reason that it's so important that there are ties between France and America, of course, that's our oldest ally, going back to the Revolutionary War. But for the city of New Orleans, the French heritage here is extremely important.
It is. The French heritage is very, very important here. I think it's very important in some of the ways that we all understand. We see the towns that have names that bear names of French people and people who founded them, lots of French families, things like that. But I think one of the most important aspects of our heritage, if you don't mind my going this direction,
Please.
One of the most important aspects of that heritage is when we think about the French who started this colony and who persisted under the Spanish and even under the Americans. I think what we inherited from them was the resiliency that we always talk about here in Louisiana, people coming together in hard times, because those colonial citizens that were here had to deal with hurricanes, fires that ravaged the city. And I think that is, in some ways, our deepest sort of inheritance from the French, the early French who were here.
And without French support in the Revolution and the War of 1812, it would have been hard.
Absolutely, it would have been very hard. They are our oldest ally, as you had mentioned. And it would have been very difficult, but I feel like France still plays an important role here in New Orleans, along with other cultures that have been absorbed into that culture and created something new that we all know. We all talk about the sort of the gumbo that is New Orleans, but the French language is the one thing that has held that together, especially throughout those early centuries of the city.
In fact, the land we're on now was purchased from France in the Louisiana Purchase.
Absolutely, that is correct. It was. Though I think a few people need to be reminded from time to time that the Spanish did colonize this place for a little bit longer than the French, but they didn't impose their language the way the French did.
But the French did sell us this, so it was
yes,
good.
They did.
All right, let's get over to Peyton, checking out a forecast.